Hi lovely people, welcome to my channel. If you're new, if you are a returning subscriber, welcome and thank you very much. My name is Leïla and on this channel I talk about personal development and my life here in Seoul, South Korea. In today's video, I would like to briefly talk about Korean politics and the housing crisis. I believe that if you are interested in moving to Korea long term, these are realities that you should be aware of. So if you are interested, keep on watching. Let's get started with politics. So what prompted the topic of politics was the recent presidential election in Korea. So on May 10th, 2022, Moon Jae-in, the current president, will be replaced by Yoon Suk-yeol. And something surprising I learned during the election process was that in Korea, presidents are elected for a 5-year, non-renewable term. Something completely unthinkable in some of my beloved African countries, I'm just saying. So basically what it means is, as a president, whatever project that you undertake, you have to make sure that someone from your party gets elected afterwards so that person can continue the path set forth. However, the consensus is that Moon Jae-in as a president did not fulfill the high expectations he has instilled in people when they elected him 5 years ago. Like most countries, Korea has 2 major political parties. Although 14, my favorite number, candidates participated in the election process, everybody knew it was going to be between Lee Jae-myung from the Democratic Party and Yoon Suk-yeol from the Conservative People Power Party. Both candidates, ideologically far apart, ran a very tight race, and at the end of the day, Yoon Suk-yeol ended up the winner. The Korean people that I know in their 20s, their 30s, and their 40s told me that choosing between the 2 candidates felt like being stuck in a rock and a hard place. I mean, there were so many scandals and accusations and insults on both sides. The whole thing was completely unbecoming. Even I was shocked by the behavior I was witnessing. And it was no wonder that people just didn't know who to trust. And it reminded me of the kind of conversations I had with my African friends regarding the fate of our continent. We all believe that those baby boomers need to disappear in order for change to occur, because it doesn't matter where you are in the world, in Korea, in a random country in Africa, or in the US, or even in Europe, you realize that those baby boomers just don't know how to act. Those baby boomers are stuck in a world that is no longer compatible with the younger generation, and you can clearly feel the divide. So at this point, I'm just wishing the best for Korea, and we have 5 years to see what this president will achieve. All right, let's move on to the housing crisis. So you will be surprised to know, at least I was when I found out the information, that the ratio of household debt to disposable income in Korea has been rising and is now at 200%. Crazy. So what it means is basically whatever money a household owes is twice as much as they have available in disposable income. I mean, think about that. And after doing some research, I also found out that a quarter of the population is actually self-employed, which is good when you think about it. But I always joke and wonder why the entrepreneurial spirit in Korea is so limited, because whenever someone wants to start a business, they almost always think about the same thing, which is opening a restaurant, a pub, a bar, a noreban. And that's why you see them piled up everywhere, as if no one cares about competition. Half of South Korea's population lives in Seoul, Incheon, and Gyeonggi-do. Prices in Seoul today range from $10,000 to $38,000 per square meter, depending on the type of housing and location. And here is, how you can compare it to other countries in the world. 5 years ago, buying an apartment would cost a regular worker 20 years of pay. As of November 2021, it is 38 years of pay. So you might say, why would people need to buy an apartment? Can't they just rent it and call a day? Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. Paying monthly rent, living in a small place, in an office style, all of that is fine if you are young and single, but when you get married and you have children, living in an apartment with several rooms in a high-rise building is considered a status symbol in Korea. And Koreans are still very much attached to that idea. So 2 ways for that to happen. You can either buy that apartment or you can rent that apartment through a system called jeonse. So jeonse is a key deposit money system. Basically, you give a huge amount to the owner of the place as a deposit. The owner takes the money to the bank and lives off of the interest generated by that money. You, on the other hand, because you gave so much money, you don't have to pay rent anymore. So you're supposed to save money every month so that when the contract expires and you get your deposit back from the owner, you add that to whatever money you saved during those years, and you then go ahead and buy your own place. So it made sense, you know, that's how the system was created, to encourage people to buy their own apartment. And it worked for a very long time until, you know, people started abusing the system, and until the housing prices just went super insanely expensive. As of June 2021, the mean amount required for a key money deposit is between 463 to 624 million Korean won in Seoul. Again, we're talking about apartment, and apartment here in Korea is very specific. We're talking about those apartments in high-rise buildings, apartments that have several, you know, bedrooms and bathroom. They're not your regular schmigler, you know, small office style kind of places. This is not what we're talking about. So when you look at this kind of amount, what bank in its right mind would agree to lend that to a regular worker, right? And those who manage to get the loan from the bank still have to pay it back every month. So even though you get the loan from the bank and you give it to the owner of the apartment and you don't have to pay rent, you still have to reimburse the loan to the bank at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, workers, either they cannot buy the place because they don't have the money, and they also cannot afford to have the deposit to rent the place. So what do? Most of them just basically give up. Right now, among all the developed countries in the world, Korea has the lowest fertility rate. And you might wonder, well, Leïla, what does that have to do with anything? Well, let me tell you. Because of the high housing crisis and the housing prices, and the fact that raising a child in Seoul is very expensive, young people have given up the idea of having a family and getting married. It's just that simple and that sad. Those who still believe in the dream and want to achieve it somehow will have to move outside of Seoul to find something big enough and suitable enough to raise a family. And the direct consequence of that is the commute time, because if you work in Seoul and you live outside of Seoul, that could take you 2 hours one way. Some people will continue to live with their parents, and they will wait way later in life and finally settle for whatever it is that they can afford at the time. So I pretty much believe that most parents in Korea do actually own the home they live in, the apartment they live in, so the child gets to stay for free. If you're smart, you take advantage of that period to save money for your future. Anyway, so it seems like in Korea right now, financial stability, making money seems to be the priority. According to a 2021 survey by the US-based Pew Research Center, Koreans picked material well-being as the #1 factor that makes their life meaningful. You can only imagine that with this kind of mentality, not being financially able to enjoy the life that you want would make people very depressed, which is unfortunate. So as a foreigner who wants to stay in Korea long term, I will eventually outgrow my lovely office style. So the housing situation is something I obviously have to take into consideration. That's why I started doing some research on it. And I wanted to make sure that you would know about it as well, just in case. All right, so now you know what it takes to live in those high-rise apartment buildings near Apjeong Station, Gangnam Stations, etc. So if that's the kind of lifestyle you are interested in, then go for it. Otherwise, when you're ready to start your family, be ready to settle for something not so brand new, not so big, not so well situated in Seoul, and that's perfectly fine as well, right? You just do whatever you can to make things happen for yourself. For those of you who would like to know more, I have added some extra links in the description box, so go ahead and check them out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you in the next one, and until then, take very good care of yourselves.